Hi guys, I'm Crissy Mack. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to start with blank sublimation tumblers. The link to these will be in the description bar below. I like to wipe my tumblers down with an alcohol pad first. I got these at the Dollar Tree. Please do not use these for this process if there is a shortage in your area. Being a Terminator geek, I only thought it was right that I use the Terminator for my first sublimation video. I'm going to start by trimming away the excess space because I find it's easier to work with the image if you trim away as much as possible. You're going to need heat safe tape. I got this one from Amazon and it will also be linked in the description bar below. I like to start by turning my image upside down and placing a piece of tape on the back of the image. I'm just going to do it in the middle today, but you can do 3 smaller pieces, one at the top, the center, and the bottom. And make sure you're attaching the tape to the image and not your work surface. Next, we're going to align the tumbler inside of the image. The reason for this is if you don't do it right, your image will be slanted when you go to sublimate it. So make sure you take your time and make sure everything is lined up. You want to grab your tumbler and your image in your dominant hand and use your non-dominant hand to secure the image to your work surface. Pull back on the tumbler and the image really tight to the point where you're afraid you might rip the paper, and then start to roll. Don't roll all the way to the tape because you need to make sure everything is lined up. And I'll show you here that it's not. So we want to adjust the tumbler inside the image until everything lines up perfectly. Once we get everything in the right spot, again, use your dominant hand to hold the tumbler and the image, your non-dominant hand to hold the image to your work surface. Pull back on the tumbler and roll really tight, applying a lot of pressure because you don't want your tumbler to move inside the image. You need everything to stay completely lined up. Now that we have this in place, we want to do the same thing to the top and the bottom without rolling. So my image wraps right over left. So I'm going to add a piece of tape to the right side, or from this view, the top side, and get any air from underneath the image before I tape it down. So really try to join those together with a lot of pressure and tape it down. Pressure is the name of the game when doing a method that does not require shrink wrap. Also, fair warning, this method does use a lot of tape, but if you can't get your hands on shrink wrap, or shrink wrap has just not worked out for you, like me, then this is another alternative. And as you can see there, you can see kind of like a black spot. That's where the image is lifted and it's not completely flush. We do not want any of those on our tumbler because that will cause a white cast to appear on our image after we sublimate. That's a result of air being under the image and the image not being flush against your substrate, in this case the tumbler. So we have to make sure we get those little edges. So what we're going to do is take a piece of tape, put it on the top and the bottom. After we join the tape at the seam. And then you want to press the image down really tight and flush along the edge of the tumbler. This is going to be extremely important in our next step, so make sure that's nice and flat. And do the same thing on the bottom. So earlier I mentioned how my image is right over left. If yours is left over right, you need to wrap left to right, but mine is right over left. So I'm going to start with my tape on the right side of my image or the seam and then tightly wrap it around the top and the bottom of the tumbler, like so. So as you can see, I placed the tape to the right side of the seam, secure it in place, and then apply a lot of pressure, really pulling it tight to push out any air that may be under the image. Sometimes you can get a white cast just around the rim. It's because there was not enough pressure against the image to make it sublimate completely. So I'm going to wrap that around, and as I wrap around, I'm going to move the tape higher than where I started. So you can see we started there, but we're there now. The point is to have the tape go beyond the image so that we can push the image over inside the tumbler and tape it to the inside of the tumbler. Press that tape into place and continue to pull it around until you have enough overhang of the tape. The tape needs to hang over the image because that's what's going to secure it to the inside of the tumbler. I think I do about 3 revolutions till I get to the point where I'm comfortable with it. I cut away the excess, and then I use my hand in a C shape to wrap around the sides of the rim. And then I eventually move to the top of the rim like so, using my palm to flatten the image along the rim of the tumbler. And then after I've done that, I crease the image on the side of the tumbler and tape it to the inside of the tumbler. It may not look like it, but I'm applying a lot of pressure. My finger almost hurt when I was doing this, but it gives you perfect results every time. And you see how flat that is? That's what we want along the edge of the tumbler. A nice smooth seam. We're going to do the same thing to the bottom, but I need to trim away a little bit of excess. I wanted my image to flood the bottom of the tumbler, so mine is a bit longer, but it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to trim away the excess, but make sure if you do this that you don't trim away too much. And we're going to do the same process on the bottom, starting to the right of the seam and wrapping around. If you see these little ridges here, that's potential areas where air can get in, so we really want to take our hand and flatten that. And don't be afraid to use your work surface. Turn it upside down, let gravity work with you, and put pressure on it to flatten it out completely, or as much as possible. Another step you can do is to tape the inside of the tumbler. What happens is once you put the tape inside of the convection oven, it's then heated and the tackiness can kind of decrease due to the heat. So an extra layer of tape on the inside of the tumbler to make sure the top portion stays taped down won't hurt anybody. You can also use your tape or any other hard surface to help flatten the tape against your seam and your edges. Another method is the spiral wrap. The spiral wrap is great if you think you have a little bit of bulge in your image. Just make sure you're spiraling in the same direction that your image is laid. However, there's more pressure underneath the tape than to the right or left of it where there's just paper. Because of that, if you apply too much heat to that area, you will sublimate your image in spirals. So there will be spirals that are sublimated more than the other. What I do to prevent this is I rotate my image, or I rotate my tumbler in the oven more often than I would, because I lay my tumblers on their side. I feel like the direct heat works a lot better with getting more vibrant colors. I sublimate my tumblers at about 380, 390 for 6 minutes, but when I spiral, I rotate every minute and 45 seconds. I know that seems like a lot of dedication, but it works. If you don't want to have to do that, don't spiral. And as you can see, we still kind of have some small spaces here. To me, it's not worth it to kind of put it in there and hope it turns out right. I'd rather just nip it in the bud now. It costs you way less to use more tape than it does to use another tumbler. So I like to put a piece inside the top and press it down with my thumb. I don't stretch the tape along the seam and tape it down. I allow my thumb to add the pressure and work down slowly so I can really force that seam down. And now we're going to pop this bad boy in the oven again, 380, 6 minutes, rotating every minute 45 because of the spiral. And while that's in there, I'm going to work on another one. I'm going to use the Cricut tape for this tumbler, just in case that's something one of you may have at home. So this is my first time using the Cricut tape for this process. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use just a little bit less tape, believe it or not. And I'm going to start with the seams like I did with the yellow tape. And then I'm going to go on to the rim of the tumbler. And once I finish the rim, I'll go to the bottom. Because I have the Cricut tape on a dispenser, I found it was harder to get a lot of pressure like normal. When we did it with the yellow tape, we were able to really pull that tape ring around, whereas I have to work in pieces here. And as you can see, the tape is kind of just like flopping onto it. It's not that really tight pressure that I had before. The other tumbler is complete. Let's see what we have. So I love the takedown process with the yellow tape. Because the tackiness is loosened up a bit, it comes off like a dream. It's really easy. The anticipation is high. You want to know if you did it right. You're so excited, and then you start to peel it back and oh my God, look at that. That is perfect. This is why I love the non-shrink wrap version, the tape version, because look at that. A lot of people wonder if you need epoxy to get it shiny. You do not. You just need a good tumbler. Again, these are linked down below. But look at that. Look at the color, the vibrancy, the detail. No white cast around the rim. We did great. Aren't you proud of yourself? We did this together, and the image floods all the way to the bottom of the tumbler. Yes, I absolutely love that. So when you sit it down, you won't see any white space whatsoever. And that's the seam where the image joins. Right. What seam? So we're going to try to get the same effect with the Cricut tumbler. Now this is where I made a huge mistake and I didn't realize. Look at what I do here. Did you notice what I was doing? I wrap the tape left to right, but my image wraps right to left. So you can literally see the image buckling under the tape. I could not figure out at the time why it was so difficult to get my image to lay flat, but that was the big mistake I made. That's why it's so important to wrap your tape in the way that you lay your image. So now that the Cricut tape tumbler is done, it's time for the takedown. As you can see, I had to go back and add a couple of strips there because there was some buckling in my image. And as you open it, there's nothing more saddening than opening it and seeing an imperfection as soon as you take that piece of tape down. It deflates you so much. But you know what? It's part of the process. And I'm glad I was able to do this, so I was able to show you guys why it's important to wrap the tape in the way that you're supposed to, because that allowed for those white casts to be on my images now. And the Cricut tape was really hard, so make sure you're being careful. If you have to use scissors, the scissors will chip away at the white coating that you sublimate on, so be very careful. Yeah, I really struggled with taking this down, but that just means the tape is really good, that's all. So here are both tumblers. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to dream big, love hard, make mistakes, sublimate your heart out, and have no regrets. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.